Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Conversation Studio. I'm Anna, and today we are going to talk about one of the most frustrating experiences for English learners, because many people can understand movies, videos, podcasts, subtitles, and even conversations quite well. But when it is finally time to speak, they suddenly freeze, panic, forget simple words, and feel unable to express their thoughts naturally in English.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and today we will discuss why understanding English and speaking English are actually two completely different skills, why learners often become trapped in passive learning for years, and how you can slowly transform your listening knowledge into active speaking ability through repetition, confidence building, and real communication practice.
One of the biggest reasons learners understand more than they can speak is because listening is passive, while speaking is active. And passive skills develop much faster because the brain only needs to recognize information instead of producing language quickly and naturally during real-time conversations. Yes, and many learners spend years watching English content every day without speaking regularly. So their brain becomes excellent at understanding patterns, vocabulary, and pronunciation, but very weak at actively building sentences and reacting immediately during conversations with other people. Another major reason is fear, because when learners listen privately, there is no pressure, no judgment, and no risk of embarrassment. But speaking feels emotionally different, because suddenly another person is waiting for your response, and this creates stress, nervousness, and self-consciousness.
Exactly. And when the brain becomes nervous, it often blocks vocabulary and slows thinking speed. So learners who normally understand English very well suddenly struggle to produce even simple sentences because anxiety interrupts natural communication ability.
Many learners also spend too much time trying to create perfect sentences before speaking. And because they are mentally checking grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, and sentence structure at the same time, their brain becomes overloaded, and speaking feels extremely slow and exhausting.
Yes, fluent conversations move quickly, and learners who overanalyze every word usually cannot keep up with natural speaking speed. So they hesitate too much, lose confidence, and eventually stop participating actively during conversations.
Another important reason is lack of active speaking practice, because understanding English does not automatically train the mouth, pronunciation muscles, speaking rhythm, or reaction speed needed for real communication, and these abilities only improve through repeated speaking practice.
Exactly. Speaking is a physical and mental skill at the same time, because your brain, mouth, pronunciation, listening, timing, and confidence all need to work together smoothly. And this coordination only develops through consistent active usage instead of passive observation alone.
Many learners also translate mentally before speaking, and this habit creates huge delays because the brain first builds the idea in the native language and then tries to convert it into English, which makes conversation stressful and prevents natural fluency from developing.
Yes, and during real conversations, there is usually no time for long internal translation. So learners who depend heavily on translating often feel mentally tired very quickly and struggle to react naturally while the conversation continues moving forward rapidly.
Another common problem is that learners know vocabulary passively but not actively, because recognizing a word during listening is much easier than recalling and using that same word correctly during spontaneous speaking situations under pressure.
Exactly. Passive vocabulary and active vocabulary are different things, and learners often understand hundreds of words perfectly while listening, but cannot immediately access those same words during conversation because they haven't practiced using them actively enough.
I also think many learners underestimate the importance of repetition, because they constantly consume new information every day, but rarely repeat and reuse old vocabulary, phrases, and speaking patterns until they become automatic habits inside the brain.
Yes, fluency depends heavily on repetition, because automatic speaking develops when the brain uses the same patterns repeatedly in real communication situations,
until sentence structures become fast, natural, and emotionally comfortable without conscious effort. Another reason learners struggle with speaking is perfectionism, because many people believe they should sound fluent immediately, and when they make mistakes or forget words, they feel embarrassed and lose confidence, instead of accepting mistakes as a natural part of language growth. Exactly. Perfectionism creates silence, and silence prevents fluency, because learners who speak imperfectly every day usually improve much faster than learners who wait silently for perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, or perfect confidence before opening their mouth. One thing that helps significantly is shadowing practice, where learners repeat natural English speech immediately after hearing it, because this trains pronunciation, rhythm, reaction speed, sentence flow, and speaking confidence all at the same time. Yes, shadowing is powerful because it forces the brain to process English directly instead of translating slowly. And over time, learners begin producing natural sentence patterns automatically through repetition and imitation of fluent speech. Another helpful strategy is speaking alone regularly, because many learners wait for perfect conversation partners before practicing. But talking to yourself in English, describing daily actions, or answering imaginary questions can still train fluency and reduce fear significantly. Exactly. Daily solo speaking practice helps build comfort and automaticity. And when learners become comfortable hearing themselves speak English regularly, real conversations begin feeling much less stressful and intimidating emotionally. I also think learners should focus more on communication than perfection, because real conversations are about sharing meaning and connection, not performing perfect grammar under pressure like an exam or classroom test every single time you speak. Yes, native speakers themselves make mistakes. Pause sometimes, repeat ideas, and simplify sentences during conversations. So learners should stop expecting impossible perfection and instead focus on expressing thoughts clearly and naturally step by step. Another important thing is emotional consistency, because many learners study intensely for short periods and then completely stop practicing. But speaking confidence grows gradually through regular exposure, repetition, listening, and communication over long periods of time. Exactly. Fluency is not created overnight. It develops slowly through thousands of small speaking moments, repeated conversations, listening experiences, mistakes, corrections, and daily interactions that gradually train the brain to communicate more naturally. So today, we discussed why learners often understand English, but still cannot speak fluently, including passive learning habits, fear, perfectionism, lack of active speaking, mental translation, weak repetition, and communication anxiety. And understanding these problems is the first step towards solving them successfully. Yes, and the solution is consistent active practice, speaking regularly without fear, repeating natural sentence patterns, reducing translation habits, and focusing on communication instead of perfection, because fluency grows through usage and confidence over time. If you enjoyed this lesson, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends, because learning together makes English practice more enjoyable and motivating. And subscribe to English Conversation Studio for more fluency lessons, vocabulary training, and real-life English speaking practice every week. Thank you very much for listening and practicing with us today. See you in the next lesson, and keep speaking English every single day.